You know, it's a funny thing about life. We all start with the same 24 hours, rich or poor, young or old, educated or not. But the question is never about time. It's about what you do with it. Let me ask you, have you ever really looked at your hands? I mean really looked. Those lines, those fingerprints, unique. No one else in the world has your set, and yet most people spend a lifetime trying to fit in, never realizing the treasure they carry inside. When I was just a broke farm boy from Idaho, working on pennies and excuses, I wasn't thinking about wealth. I was thinking about how to pay the rent, how to put food on the table, how to survive. And then I met a man named Mr. Schoaf. Now I'll never forget that day. I was 25 years old, skinny as a rail, pockets empty, and dreams even thinner. But he looked at me with a smile that carried decades of wisdom, and he said something that changed my life. Jim, if you want things to change, you have to change. And if you want things to get better, you have to get better. Simple? Yes. But profound, more than you know. That was the day I learned the power of philosophy. You see, most people think they need a better economy, a better boss, a better break. But the truth? They need a better philosophy. You can give $10 to two different people. One will spend it on lunch, the other will buy a used book and change their life. It's not about the money, it's about the meaning. Mr. Schoaf told me, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. And boy, did that sting. Because up until then, I had a long list of complaints. Taxes too high, opportunities too few, weather too cold. But never once had I asked, what can I do? That's when I learned about personal responsibility. Now I'm not talking about guilt or shame. No, I'm talking about power. The kind of power that comes when you stop blaming the world and start building yourself. You see, wealth isn't something you chase. It's something you attract by becoming an attractive person. Not in appearance, but in character, in discipline, in value. I'll never forget one cold morning when I couldn't afford a cup of coffee. I was sitting in a cafe watching people walk in and out, suits, ties, smiles, and I thought to myself, what do they know that I don't? Turns out, it wasn't just what they knew. It was what they did every single day, daily disciplines. A man becomes what he does repeatedly. You skip the gym today? That's not a big deal. But skip it for a year, and your body tells the story. Same with reading, with saving, with showing up on time. The little things compound. Success is rarely one giant leap. It's a quiet walk, taken daily, with purpose. You know, I started with $10 once. That's all I had in my pocket. But I made a decision. I wouldn't spend it. I'd invest it. And that's where everything shifted. I bought a book, a dusty old book on personal development. And from that book came ideas. From those ideas, habits. From those habits, new results. And over time, the man I was started to give way to the man I could be. You see, you don't get paid for the hour. You get paid for the value you bring to the hour. And value comes from growth, from becoming more valuable. Now here's a truth most people ignore. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That one idea turned my life upside down. Most people spend 40 hours a week on their job and 0 hours on themselves. No wonder they feel empty. No wonder they plateau. You want to triple your income? Then triple your wisdom. Triple your discipline. Triple your value. Because when you grow, everything grows. It's like the seasons. You can't change the seasons, but you can change yourself. Winter comes for all of us, financially, emotionally, spiritually. But the question is, Will you be prepared? I once met a young man who said, "Jim, I've been through some hard winters lately." I said, "Good, then spring is coming." I said, "Good, then spring is coming." Because after winter, always comes spring. But here's the kicker. Spring doesn't stay forever. So when it comes, plant. When summer arrives, protect. When fall rolls in, harvest. And when winter returns, rest, but reflect. It's all in the seasons. Life doesn't respond to need. It responds to deserve. Now that might sound harsh, but it's honest. You don't get what you need in life. You get what you deserve. And the only way to deserve more is to become more. You know, I remember one rainy afternoon, sitting in my old apartment with a notepad. I made a list of everything I wanted to change: my finances, my energy, my relationships. And at the top of the page I wrote, "If it's going to be, it's up to me." That was the first day I ever felt free. Not because I had the answers, but because I finally stopped waiting for someone else to bring them. The power of choice is a gift. You can choose books over television, health over habits, growth over comfort. You can choose to associate with people who stretch you. You can choose to set goals that scare you. You can choose to say, "This stops with me, and something better begins with me." But most people won't, because most people are waiting for permission, waiting for conditions, waiting for someday, and someday never comes. Let me ask you something. If not now, when? If not you, who? You're not too old. You're not too late. You're not too broken. You're just one decision away from a whole new direction. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. Because when you finally decide to stop blaming the rain and start planting anyway, that's when you discover the miracle of harvest. And the truth is, every person carries a seed inside them, a seed of greatness, of purpose, of potential. But that seed doesn't grow because you want it to. It grows because you work it, because you discipline it, because you protect it when the winds blow and the rains fall. I've seen janitors become millionaires, and millionaires go bankrupt. It's not the job. It's the philosophy. And philosophy starts with thinking. How you see the world, how you see yourself, how you see time. Time, the great equalizer. You can't buy more of it. You can only invest it. So the real question is, are you spending your hours, or are you planting them? Because here's the truth, plain and simple. Every hour has a price. But most people spend theirs like spare change, on distractions, on excuses, on things that don't multiply. Let me give you a little picture. Imagine your life is a garden. Every conversation you have, every habit you repeat, every belief you hold, it's either a seed or a weed, and you're the gardener. Now, some will say, "Jim, I don't have time to plant the right seeds." But time isn't the issue. Focus is. You see, life doesn't demand that you do everything. It just demands that you do the right things, consistently, patiently, persistently. That's what separates the successful from the struggling. Not genius, not luck, but small, intentional decisions repeated over time. Years ago, I met a young salesman, bright, energetic, but always broke. He came to one of my seminars and said, "Mr. Rohn, I just don't understand why I'm not winning." So I asked him, "How many books did you read this month?" He looked down and said, "None." "How many people did you call today?" "Maybe 5. "How many new ideas have you implemented since we last spoke?" He just shook his head, and I told him gently, "Then don't be surprised. Because life is not a lottery ticket. It's a reflection. You don't get what you want. You get what you are. If you want more, become more. And that doesn't require a revolution. It just requires a decision. One day, I decided to become a student of life. Not just a worker, not just a talker, a student. I bought the books. I took the notes. I asked the questions. I surrounded myself with people who lived at a higher level. And piece by piece, my world began to change. Not overnight, but over time. Because the compound effect is real. Let me give you a little formula I call the magic of 5 years. If you read one good book every month for 5 years, that's 60 books, 60 perspectives, 60 lessons. Do you think that would change your life? If you saved $300 a month for 5 years, invested wisely, do you think your bank account would look different? If you wrote one handwritten letter of gratitude every week for 5 years, how deep would your relationships become? That's the secret. You don't build a life in a weekend. You build it one brick at a time, with wisdom, with discipline, and with vision. Let me talk to you about vision for a moment. Your eyes look outward, but your vision looks inward. Your eyes show you what is, but vision shows you what could be. And most people don't suffer from a lack of resources. They suffer from a lack of vision. Because vision pulls you forward. It gives the pain a purpose. It gives the discipline a direction. When I started to visualize the kind of man I wanted to become, not just the money I wanted to earn, but the man I wanted to be, everything started to line up. I wanted to be the kind of man who kept promises, who lived with integrity, who honored his family, who made a difference. And you know what happened? The opportunities came, the wealth came, but only because the character came first. Character, that's the foundation. It's what you do when no one's watching. It's how you handle pressure, power, and praise. And it's built the same way as wealth, one small choice at a time. Now I want to share something personal with you. One evening after I'd started to taste a bit of success, I sat down with my mentor, Mr. Schoaf. I asked him, how do I keep growing? How do I make sure I don't lose this? He looked at me and said, Jim, success is not something you pursue. Success is something you become. I said, but what if I fail again? He smiled. You will fail. That's guaranteed. But if you keep learning, you'll never lose. That conversation changed the way I looked at failure. It wasn't the end. It was just feedback. Just another lesson, another brick in the foundation. And when you build yourself up, failure can shake you, but it can't break you. Because deep down, you'll know. You're not dependent on luck. You're not desperate for shortcuts. You've become someone who can earn the life they want, again and again and again. Let's talk about associations now. One of the greatest influences on your life is who you spend time with. It's like drifting on a river. You may think you're just floating, but the current is pulling you. Ask yourself, are the people around me lifting me or lowering me? Are they planting seeds or sowing weeds? It doesn't mean you stop loving people, but it does mean you become intentional about who shapes your mind, your energy, your standards. Because environment matters. You can't plant roses in a swamp and expect them to bloom. I learned early. Find people who are doing better than you. Ask them questions. Take them to lunch. Pay attention. If someone's living a life you admire, it's not by accident. It's by design, by decisions, and by disciplines. And when you adopt the disciplines, you adopt the results. Let's come back to wealth, not just money. Wealth. True wealth is about more than income. It's peace of mind. It's purpose. It's relationships that breathe life into you. Money is part of it, sure, but it's just a tool. You want to know what wealth really is? It's waking up and knowing who you are. It's having options. It's having the strength to say no to what doesn't matter, so you can say yes to what does. It's looking your family in the eye and knowing you've done your part. It's being remembered for how you lived, not just what you earned. And that kind of wealth, it starts with a single step, a single choice, a single act of courage to say, I will no longer live on autopilot. I will build something with my life. And my friend, the minute you say that, the world begins to open. Because the universe honors discipline. It honors hunger. It honors people who decide, not wish, not wait. Decide. So I'll ask you today, what will you decide? Will you keep trading your time for distractions? Or will you trade it for transformation? Will you keep blaming the weather, the government, the boss, the traffic? Or will you finally say, no more? I'm responsible for the direction of my life. Because everything changes when you change. One of my favorite principles is this: don't ask for things to be easier. Ask to become better. And better doesn't mean you become someone else. It means you become more of who you were meant to be. More intentional, more disciplined, more awake. See, we're not here just to survive. We're here to design a life that inspires, a life that matters, a life that leaves footprints when we're gone. I remember once meeting a man who told me, Jim, I don't set goals. I just take life as it comes. And I looked at him kindly and said, that's fine, if you're okay being wherever life decides to drop you. But if you want to go somewhere on purpose, you'd better have a map. And even more important, you'd better become the kind of person who can follow it. That's what goals do. They stretch you, they refine you, they call you higher, but they also expose your weaknesses. And that's a gift, because what you're unwilling to confront, you'll never change. That's why personal growth is the highest form of wealth. Because if you grow, everything around you grows. Your business, your confidence, your relationships, your resilience. Now let me share something Mr. Schoaf told me when I was just getting started, still broke, still making excuses. He said, Jim, for things to change, you have to change. And for things to get better, you have to get better. I wrote that down. I underlined it. And then I began to live it. Day by day, book by book, discipline by discipline. I didn't try to become a millionaire overnight. I tried to become a man worthy of abundance. And that made all the difference. You see, we often want the fruit, but we forget about the roots. We want the harvest, but we ignore the habits. But the universe doesn't work that way. It rewards those who plant, who tend, who wait, not those who wander. And the beautiful part, the law works for anyone. You don't need a fancy degree. You don't need the right family name. You just need the willingness to start, to learn, to adjust, to stay the course when others quit. Because here's what I discovered. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. And the good news is, it's never too late. I once spoke with a man who was 63. He said, Jim, is it too late for me to start over? And I told him, sir, if you've got breath in your lungs and a dream in your heart, it's not too late. It's only too late if you keep doing nothing. Because the clock doesn't care. The calendar doesn't pause. But neither do opportunities. They're always there for the prepared. Now, I want to be honest with you. There were days I wanted to quit. Days I thought, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But then I'd remember something Mr. Schoaf said. Don't let your current results define your capacity. Your future is always bigger than your past, if you let it be. That truth gave me hope, and I want it to give you hope too, because your life, it's still moldable, still changeable, still full of seeds waiting to be planted. But no one else can plant them for you. Not your parents, not your spouse, not your boss, not even your mentor. Only you. So the question becomes, what kind of life do you want to build? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Because every day you're building something. The only question is whether it's by design or by default. And I'll tell you what I learned the hard way. Drifting feels easy in the moment. But designing, that creates fulfillment. Not just success, fulfillment. The kind that lets you sleep at night. The kind that makes you proud when no one's watching. You see, I didn't just want to earn money. I wanted to become a man of value, because value attracts all good things: money, relationships, respect, purpose. If you want more, become more valuable, read more, serve more, create more. Don't wait to be discovered. Discover yourself and let the world respond. People often ask me, Jim, what's the secret to turning $10 into $1,000? And here it is, plain and simple. You invest $1 in your skills, $1 in your character, $1 in your associations, $1 in your vision, $1 in your disciplines, and you repeat that process until the world cannot ignore you. You become the kind of person who can't help but succeed because of who you've become on the inside. That's how wealth works. That's how legacy works. And my friend, legacy is what you're really building. Not just what people say when you're gone, but the echo of your daily choices. The invisible fingerprints you leave behind on people's hearts, in their minds, through the example of your life. So let me leave you with this. Don't ask the world for permission. Don't wait for the stars to align. Don't look for the shortcut. Look in the mirror and say, it starts with me, and it starts now. Because there is greatness in you, not potential alone, but possibility waiting for permission. And the moment you decide to grow, the moment you choose to rise, the world begins to shift. Doors open, ideas come, the right people appear, and suddenly that $10 seed, it starts to grow, not by magic, but by design. A design you created, a life you shaped, a legacy you earned. So plant the seed, tend the garden, and trust the harvest. Because what you build with intention can never be taken by circumstance.